The last core template feature I want to dive in for now are includes or partials, as they are also sometimes called. With that, I'm referring to a related concept to template inheritance, but the idea now is not that we have a base template from which we inherit, but that we have snippets, HTML snippets, template snippets, which we might want to reuse in various templates, but which don't act as a base template with the entire structure that should be used by some other template. An example could be a navigation bar. At the moment, our little dummy application here, our dummy site, doesn't have any navigation. We just directly output an unordered list or the challenge title and text. Now, it might make sense to have a little navigation bar here at the top, which allows us to switch back to the all challenges list, because at the moment, when we are on a specific month, we can only go back with the back button. So having a little navigation bar there might be nice. And that navigation bar could then also include other links, for example, to an About You page, if we had that as well. So what we can, of course, do is, in our content block here in challenge HTML, we could add a header, opening and closing, so the default header HTML tag, and in there we could add the nav tag to add a navigation, and in there we could then have an anchor tag with a link to the all challenges page, which we'll have to construct in a second, where we say all challenges. That's something we might want to add. Now, we might want to add that not just to challenge HTML, but also to index HTML. Of course, here we already are on the all challenges page, but it is quite common for websites to have the same header on all pages, not just on one page. So therefore here we might want to add that header as well. And we can do that, but now we're duplicating code. Of course, we could outsource this header into our base template. We could add it here above the content block and then remove it from the individual templates. But if this would be a bigger project with multiple applications, maybe not all parts of the project share exactly the same header. Maybe there are tiny tweaks that need to be made, so therefore we might not want to add it to the base template. So hence I will go for an include here. And that simply means that I don't want to duplicate the code across templates, instead I'll remove it there. But I will create a new folder here in my challenges subfolder next to my template files, which I'll name includes. The name is up to you though. You could name that partials or shared or whatever you want, but I'll go for includes. And in includes, I'll add my header HTML file, though that file name is also up to you. In that file, however, I will add my header like this. And now I want to include this HTML snippet defined here in both the challenge HTML and the index HTML files. And we can do this with another tag offered by the Django template language. Here, inside of my content block, I will add a new tag, and that is the include tag. Now, this has nothing to do with the include function we used earlier in URLs py. It has nothing to do with that, just to make this clear. Instead, this now allows us to include another template. And here we then want to specify that template name or a relative path to the template. So here I can use header HTML, but that would not work because Django would not find a file named header HTML in the root templates folder or in challenges templates, because there it sits in the nested challenges includes folder. So here we could add challenges includes, and it would be found, or a relative path relative from the file in which we're using it. So that could be /includes header HTML. That's the relative path to header HTML seen from the challenge HTML file. Now I'll go for that absolute path here, which Django will be able to evaluate, because then I can easily share and reuse that in any other templates in that app without having to worry if they're in some nested folder or not or anything like that. Now, if we save all files, what will happen is that if I visit an individual challenge, you have that all challenges header at the top now. And we can use that same snippet, that same include snippet in index.html. As you already see, this also needs no closing tag. There is no end include because, well, this does just one thing, like the URL tag. It includes that snippet. Now with that, we also have the header on the index template here, and we are now reusing and sharing that snippet across these app-specific templates. And that is a nice feature to have. Now, one thing's missing though, and that is this path here. We of course want to again construct this dynamically, and therefore what I'll do is I'll go to URLs py in the challenges app and give this index path a name with the name keyword argument, and I'll name it index. And now that this has a name in header HTML, we can again use the URL tag and specify index here as a URL, so that the path, the link to that URL, is dynamically generated by Django. If we now save that and reload and go to a month, we can click on all challenges to be taken back to the all challenges page. And this now is of course a very useful feature. Now, as a side note, there also is another nice thing about this include feature, which we don't need here right now, but which is good to know. The included snippets here will have access to the same variables you have access to in the template where you include them. So for example, in challenge HTML, we got the month name variable, and that would also be available in that included template. Of course, the problem then would be that we also include that template in index.html, and if we rely on month name in the included template, that would work for challenge HTML, but not for index.html. So if I temporarily output month name here, what you'll see is that this produces nothing for all challenges, but actually does print the month name for the individual challenge. And that is very useful, the fact that you have access to those variables in the included snippets as well. This can come in handy from time to time. You can also pass in specific context, specific values for the included template. You do this with the with keyword here, and then you can set extra variables, which will be available inside of the included snippet, which are not available in the template which is including. So here we could, for example, say with active page equals challenge. And then for the index.html file, we say with active page equals index. And then inside of the include, we could, for example, output active page here. And if I save that, you see challenge if I'm on the specific challenge page, but index if I'm there. It's not something we need here, but something you might need in other circumstances, for example, to highlight the active link, and therefore that's another neat feature, which I'll delete for now, but which you should be aware of. We're also going to use that later in the course in our projects. So for the moment, I'm going to get rid of that include specific context though. And that's the include feature, which together with all the other features you learned allows you to write powerful, dynamic HTML templates without having to put all that logic into your views.py file. Instead, that file can stay lean, and you now have all that logic for outputting and rendering inside of your templates.